Well, relatively quiet weather conditions nationwide. There's no major storms around, and not exactly much on the plate either as we move forward. Although there's a big storm out in the Atlantic that's not really bothering anybody except the ships in the seas. We'll have this and other ideas all coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is, of course, as always, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. And as each day we get one day closer to spring, you could start thinking about mulch and topsoil and everything else to make sure that your home is perfectly landscaped, like Joe Rayo's. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. Nowhere can you find better prices because the website is
OmniTrueValue.com, Joe.
yes, Mr. Rayo. So here we are on a Tuesday, and just give me a moment here. We're having some technical difficulties. Please stand by. Nope, that's not it. All right, we're gonna have to
Remember
do
on
it.
Channel 5? Remember on Channel 5 when they had technical difficulties, they always play a Burt Camford tune while they were trying to figure out what the heck was going on.
Precisely, Robin. Okay, so if we could just make the GFS stop doing what it's doing with this system on over the weekend, because Joe, it decided to give me 8 inches. It buries the Carolina Mountains and up into the central Appalachians with the dark blue snow, and I was looking on Pivotal, and it shows that I get 8 inches. It takes the upper low to my south. It brings the 850 temperature down to about -5. So, yeah, if it looks like that, I could, yeah, for me, but that just doesn't seem plausible. And the other thing is, you know, one of the things you'll look for is to have at least, when one model stands out and the other ones are all in one direction, it's usually a pretty good bet to go with the ones that are in the other direction. And uh, the other ones are all squashy and flat, and that's kind of where I'm at with this for the weekend. We were talking about it yesterday, as especially in a winter like this, it's the longest of long shots.
Well, I was doing a little bit of historical record keeping today, and I totally forgot 2 years ago on this date, it was Super Bowl Sunday, and we had the snowiest Super Bowl Sunday on record. We had 4.5 inches of snow from mid-morning through late afternoon. I don't even remember this.
No,
It was just 2 years.
I don't remember it either. There's a lot of things
two
I don't
years ago.
remember anymore.
It was wet snow. The temperature when the snow started was 37. The temperature didn't get down to 32 until early afternoon. And this particular storm on Super Bowl Sunday 2021, it was Super Bowl 55, by the way, brought the month's snowfall, Joe, at Central Park to just 1/10 of an inch shy of 20 inches. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, right now we'd probably take the 1/10 of an inch.
Oh, really? We were talking before we went on air, and as Joe was getting set up here with his stuff or whatever, and I said, "What are we going to talk about?"
I know it's like
there's nothing to talk about.
It really is. It is as quiet a pattern as you could get. I mean, there's some little pockets here and there where there's stuff going on, but and you get this during, we get this all the time where you get these stretches where not much happens. But when you've been in a winter where not much happens and then not much happens, you're really, your hands are tied in all of this. But we'll make it work. We always seem to make it work.
Well, it's something. everybody is saying, like, for example, we have James Davidson on the chat board, and he says, so far as I'm concerned, winter is all over, done completely. A very big warm up for this month of February. Ridge is very strong, doesn't show signs of ever breaking down. So that's and he's not the only one. People on my Facebook page have been saying, Joe, it's all over with, it's done, it's dead. But you know what? I told one guy, I said, quite frankly, I don't care. I really don't. I've got a long, wide driveway, and I have not yet had to go into the garage and pull out the snowblower once so far. And if this could be the year where I don't have to use the snowblower all winter.
And why? Yeah, well, it's not a bad thing.
What the heck? Yeah.
I just get it's just that it's the month of February, and there's really, I mean, how much can you really do in the month of February? It's you get deeper into the spring, you get these nice warm days where it's in the 70s and well, depending on whether there's an onshore flow or not, but it's
we may be in the 70s before this month is over. The way things are going.
I will say this because it does happen early. As I was driving in to where I live, there's a dirt road that I'm on, and there's a barn with a little plot of farmland that gets cultivated. Their daffodils are already blooming, but that isn't that unusual here, especially if they planted the the daffodils that are bred to come up really early. But there they were. There were some flowers out there already. So by the end of the month, there'll be quite a few of them around here. But anyhow, I get to at least hope that the GFS is even remotely close to being correct, that I could see maybe a little bit of snow here on Saturday. Welcome to everybody on the chat board. Welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background on watch, because there's so many of you that watch but don't comment here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. If you like the Joe and Joe Weather Show, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can join us Monday through Thursday at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays we're off, unless there's a big storm around, and doesn't seem to be any danger of that. So why don't we get rolling? Shall we get moving?
Yeah, sure. Well, might as well.
Now, there are one of the snow removal guys that I work with is up in the Boston area, and they're salting up in that area because they have winter weather advisories up for much of Massachusetts. I didn't actually specifically look to see what the advisory is for, so let's take a look. And that includes, by the way, Boston in and of itself. And I'm just going to read it real quick because I was looking at the front coming through tonight. A coating of snow possible with light accumulating from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. tonight till 2 a.m. Wednesday. For snow and ice accumulations of a light glaze. I thought that, I guess because maybe there might be a little bit of freezing drizzle in the mix. I guess that's why they put up a winter weather advisory for something like this. But
I believe they have one for Sullivan County as well. Right across the border from Orange County, there's a winter weather advisory, and it might very well be for the same thing because the moisture content of this approaching weather front isn't all that much. I mean,
right.
If it were just pure snow, you might get maybe what might we get out of this, Joe? I mean,
a tenth of an inch, maybe an inch.
Liquid precip, yeah, maybe a tenth of an inch. You might get an inch of snow if it were straight, or it might be a little icy, or maybe some sleet. And I've said this before. I really don't know what the criteria is for a winter weather advisory. I always thought a winter weather advisory was for anything that may include snow and or ice accumulating to at least 2 inches. But as we see here, at least in and around the Boston area, it's for hardly anything.
Well, their temps are hovering right around 30 to 32 in much of I'm just looking at some of these temperatures right now in Massachusetts. Actually, it's kind of cold. Hyannis is only 30. Chatham is 35. Falmouth is 28. Provincetown 32. Boston is 31. So it's right around the freezing mark. Okay, I suppose there could be a little bit, but it's such a light. That's what I told the guys. Said it's just a light amount of precip. I can't imagine it amounting to much.
There's been so little of this, even up in the Boston area.
Yeah.
So far this winter season, it's kind of like November or early December, where people are simply not used to this and really have not had enough practice. So they're afraid that maybe even with a very light, and it can be, and it's that way. I've mentioned it a number of times in the past. The first storm or the first frozen precipitation event usually could turn out to be one of the worst events of the season because you have people driving along. It's a little bit of it, no big deal there, and all of a sudden you find yourself skidding off the road. So that could very well be why they've done what they've done tonight in the Boston area and also
Right.
up in Sullivan County.
Yeah, Chuck Cardillo up in the Catskills there says he's freezing rain in 29. And poor guy's been chopping through ice for the last 2 days, and now he's got to chop through some more. They've got high wind warnings up for some of the counties along Lake Erie and Lake Ontario around the Buffalo area. Also in western Ohio, the northern half of Indiana, and a small portion of east central Illinois under high wind warnings. Some winter weather advisories in northeastern Iowa, southwestern Wisconsin. Flood watches for southernmost Missouri and northernmost Arkansas. High wind warnings for westernmost Kansas and easternmost Colorado. Some winter weather advisories down in New Mexico. Some winter weather advisories up in Montana with high wind issues there too. And winter weather advisories and a winter storm warning up in the Cascades. I always like to look to see what they have a winter weather advisory for here. Let's see. So I'm gonna pick one of these.
For the Cascades?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick one because those are always fun to read.
Winter weather advisory for 2 to 4 feet of snow.
Yeah, something like that. No, well, this spot that I picked, which is called 9 miles west-southwest of Skycomish, Washington. Okay. Showers and a thunderstorm. Snow level 3,000 feet. Steady temperatures around 35. Rainfall accumulations of less than 1/10 of an inch. Rain and thunder tomorrow. 1 to 3 inches of snow accumulation. Yeah, they didn't put much on that one. Let me just pick another spot. Let's find another spot. I'll go where the winter storm warning is and see what that says. This is for 3 miles east-northeast of Marble Mount, Washington. All right, so they're going for 1 to 3 tonight, less than a ½ inch tomorrow, then little or no accumulation expected Wednesday night, little or no accumulation expected. No, that's just okay. So you know what? I'm gonna read. Let me just read the statement. Oh, brother. Okay, heavy snow above 3,000 feet with additional accumulations of up to a foot. Yawn. Yawn. No wonder. Well, they got a winter storm warning. They think they maybe overstepped their bounds. It should just be a winter weather advisory. The way things can happen up there. So you can see it's pretty quiet. And on the satellite loop, we can still see the tail end on the upper right, the big storm that formed out in the Atlantic, well-defined center, well south of Newfoundland. Even the Canadian Maritime provinces can't seem to do much with these storms that have developed out there. We've got this weather front that's moving through, producing clouds and a little bit of precip, which we'll show on the radar in a moment. And then that extends down across Ohio and Indiana, into Missouri, down into Arkansas and Texas and Oklahoma. And we've got some moisture coming into Pacific Northwest, but these are all relatively tame systems.
By the way, Joe, your screen is on the satellite loop, so we're just seeing you.
Oh, yeah, you gotta tell me these things. I forgot.
I'm telling you now. That's okay.
All right, so there we go. There you are. So there we have it on the satellite loop tonight. And on the radar, as we take a look here in the Northeast, and the precip's a little heavier as you get up into Vermont and New Hampshire. And there's rain in and around the Albany area, and you can see the brighter yellow echoes that are showing up as they move east. And there's a bit of a break. Chuck, you're looks like one band is coming out. There's another band to your west that's about to move in down into northeast PA, across into southwest PA, southern Ohio, southern Indiana. Most of this is on the light side. Get a little bit of heavier precip in eastern Oklahoma, rain. Also into southern Missouri and northwestern Arkansas, and in parts of East Texas, probably a rumble or two of thunder in there. And you've got the action that's going on in the Pacific Northwest. But that's about it for that. And on the surface map, sometimes when it gets like this, I often wonder, did those all those events over the many years that you and I have have experienced, did they actually really happen? Because I look at a surface map like this and I think, how did they get to where you had the big high to the north with bitter cold air and some sort of developing low east of Virginia moving right through the box? I start to really
Yes.
doubt that those events ever happened.
Well, you have to trust your senses and trust your memory, I guess. Uh, I'm wondering some of the latex dreams. What do you mean by trial run, right, Rayo? What does that mean? I is
God knows,
I have no
God knows
I have
what he's doing right now.
I'm no clue what trial run is.
Yeah, I
He's
know.
saying this is a trial run for the spring or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, getting back to what you say, yeah, I find it difficult sometimes to believe or imagine what one particular setup was, and all of a sudden you turn around and boom, it's completely different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Warm front alert in western New York, trailing hairpinning down through Pennsylvania into northern Virginia. It's in the it's upper 50s and 60s, and even got into the 70s in central and south Georgia today. Absolutely, I got to tell you, it was a spectacular day here. Sunshine, not a cloud in the sky from start to finish. Absolutely gorgeous day. Got to low 60s after a low this morning of 28. It was really nice. And there's your weather front that runs through Ohio, down through Kentucky, western Kentucky, cuts across um, Arkansas, where it's in the mid 40s on the northwest side, and it's in the mid to upper 70s south of the front. 70s across Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama, just to get an absolutely gorgeous day. And then you got your slightly colder air behind us. There's no real Arctic air anywhere. I mean, it's in the 40s, even up into the Dakotas, for God's sake. And I love this map when they plot every single high that they can find. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7 highs are analyzed, Joe. 7 highs and 3 lows.
It's well, the highs are winning by 4 points.
The
The
Yeah, go
chairman
ahead.
hitting super chat and reminding us, those of us of a certain age, that, and I remember this very well, on this date in 1967, Central Park recorded 12.5 inches of snow. High temperature that day was only 16. That was a legitimate blizzard. That was they put blizzard warnings up that morning as the snow was coming down hot and heavy. That's only the use of a specific term. It was not hot, but the snow was heavy. 16 degrees. And the chairman says, those were the days, my friend. And yes, we did think that they'd never end, but apparently they have.
Uh,
Um,
Eric DJs says, Joe, did you notice any sign of spring leafing where you are in northern Georgia? No, not at all. Except for the daffodils, which is not uncommon to start seeing them pretty early in the month of February, particularly in the second half. But the nights get very cold here, so that kind of slows. Up in here in the mountains anyway, it slows the trees. The trees actually don't fill out here until mid to late May, believe it or not. but the grass does get green pretty early. I have noticed that there's already, the grass is already starting to turn green in along the roads.
All
So
right.
it's coming. Get these
If it
warm
gets
days like this, yeah, why not?
if it gets any warmer, the forsythia is going to start coming out 2 months early. Uh,
Yes.
and I love people on the chat board like James Davidson. And the old Farmer's Almanac blew it all together. I wonder what in the world they were thinking. And then, of course, following up on that is our good friend Tom Contino. The Farmer's Almanac led many astray with its forecast. I'm done with them.
Yeah, but
Not looking
you
at
know
it
what?
next year.
You
But you
look
want to
at
know
it.
what? No, 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 no.
You
But
are going to
yeah,
look at it next year. They are going
they're
to
gonna.
look at it.
They're
Why
very
would you look
seductive.
at it?
They're very seductive. I mean, when you're in the Barnes and Noble or whatever store you get the Farmer's Almanac, and there's the 2024 edition. Don't tell me you're not going to look at it. Of course you're
Of
going to
course, you're
look
going
at
to
it,
look at it.
and you're probably going to spend your whatever money depending upon what edition you get. There are various editions of the old Farmer's Almanac. There's like the small thin edition. That's like $5. You can get the library edition for 10, which is thicker and gives you a lot more, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, don't tell me. And it's not like they say on the Farmer's Almanac or the old Farmer's Almanac, we're 100% accurate. No, they never say that. And there are going to be years when these long range outlooks are going to be in the toilet. I mean, you can't. I mean, there's just some crazy things out there that happen. But what I'm going to tell you, and somebody explained to me what was meant earlier by somebody posting, and said this is a trial run because this is the trial run for next winter. Already people are giving up on next winter, Joe. They're saying that's it. This is a bad winter. Next winter is going to be even worse. And ladies and gentlemen, get a hold of yourselves. Joe and I have been in this business now for over 40 years. We have seen our share of lousy winters like this. We didn't throw in the towel. We didn't say this is it. This is going to be the way it's going to be ad nauseum for the rest of our lives. And I will maintain uh, every time we have a cruddy winter like this for the snow lovers, the following winter comes back bigger and better than ever. It more than makes up for the previous. Case in point, several years ago, we had 4.8 inches at Central Park. The following winter, Central Park had something like 28 or 30 inches. Everybody forgot about the lousy winter from the previous year. It's not going to be like this for the rest of your lives. It's not going to be like this every year from here on in.
It will snow again in the I-95 corridor.
It will. It will. I mean, we had this same feeling. You and I, Joe, I know we had this feeling back in the 70s. Oh, it's never going to snow in New York again. Oh, we're never going to have a great winter. And then what happened in 1978? Ba-boom! A 15-incher, 17 days later, 20 inches. We had more snow than we knew what to do with. Where did that come from all of a sudden? It happens. It happens. Don't worry about it. Adam Lowe, this winter is a trial run for next winter. It is not a trial run. It's going to be something different. I could already tell you this year we have a fading La Nina, which is probably already gone or is on the virtually gone. And if the way things usually play out, by the beginning of next winter, we'll probably be in the midst of the beginnings of an El Nino. And what the heck is that going to bring us? I don't know. But it certainly has got to be something different than what we're going through this particular winter season. And the winter's not over yet either, folks. I mean, we could still have, something happen, in March or even early April. There was that one winter, Joe has mentioned it more than enough times. I've mentioned it a few times. The winter of 97, 98 had hardly anything, half an inch of snow. Then all of a sudden, 2 days after the beginning of spring, boom, New York had 5 quick inches.
Right.
It can happen.
And that was it for the whole year winter. So
that was it.
Let's make it clear.
But,
it just is.
But it was something. It was something.
Yeah. You know what? I basically for in my mind, I really don't like to look beyond much the 2 week time frame. So this takes us to February 22nd, 23rd. There's nothing when we look at the maps in a bit. There's nothing that remotely indicates that anything is going to change in time for that time frame. You're almost at the end of the month of February. It basically leaves you about 2.5 to 3 weeks that if you get a favorable another one of these really short windows where you get like we got the bitter blast, if that happens again or something where you could wind up with a couple of cheap snowfalls, that's in my mind that's probably the best that you're going to be able to do for snow lovers at this point. I don't like to I don't make unequivocal statements about whole seasons. I certainly am not going to make a statement about next a winter next winter or the winter after. Hey, we had four horrible winters in a row for snow lovers from 1996-97 to 1999-2000. So don't ever, just because granted, statistically, the odds are in your favor of having an above normal winter after a winter like this, but it's not a guarantee. It didn't happen in 73, 74 after 72, 73. You had to wait till 77, 78 to get, I mean, 76, 77 was normal. Okay. So you had to wait like four winters before you got to a normal snowfall. We do have a super chat hit from Sal Patchy. This is July 2nd, 1974, the day of his birthday. It was 90 degrees and sunny. He can't wait for the heat. Yeah, I think we could put that off for a little while, though. I'm not looking forward to 90.
And for those who are,
Thank you, Sal.
and for those who are going poo-poo, oh, the old Farmer's Almanac, oh, I'm never going to relate that. How about our old friend Judah Cohen? I mean, like a lot of people bow to him. They said, "Here's the guy who knows what he's talking about. Here's the and today on his Twitter feed for today, he said, for the remainder of the winter of 23, I believe there are more unknowns than knowns. Okay, then other than that, and Joe, I think he's been listening to us. He said, other than the fact that the clock is approaching midnight,
well,
big question I have is why are models trending warm Eurasia, cold North America, when impending sudden stratospheric warming? Possible answers, wave reflection.
And look, I don't doubt, I don't doubt that there's every, him and others that know about this stuff. It's way above my pay grade. So I defer to them about the stratospheric warming. I just wonder whether it's going to couple, and I said this back weeks ago when there were signs of a so-called stratospheric warming that didn't quite materialize. That you know, what we don't know is if it could do all that, but what if it doesn't disrupt the troposphere? If it doesn't disrupt the lower part of the atmosphere, the stratosphere could do whatever it wants. If it's not going to have any impact on the, and we've seen it where it doesn't. By the way, that's why I'm saying that. So I've been in prove it to me mode for a while now, and that warming is going to have to be a major prove it to me if the vortex splits. Meanwhile, rainfall amounts, nothing too crazy here. I'm looking at tenth to a quarter of an inch from the Central Appalachians on up into Maine. WPC is not bringing precip up for the weekend if it's only got a tenth to a quarter of an inch. And you can see where it does have more precip, and that's down in the southern Virginia, down to the Florida Panhandle, west across the Gulf states, into the southern plains, where we're forecasting several inches over the next 7 days, also extending up 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter up into the lower Great Lakes. The Pacific Northwest does really well with rainfall. As far as snow is concerned, let me just update this. So as always, we like to look at the probability of at least 2. There are days where that's pushing it, by the way. Well, we could all go to Maine because that's where we have 80 to 100% probability of at least 2 in interior and northern Maine. Also back in the upper peninsula of Michigan, across parts of central Wisconsin into northeastern Iowa, fairly large area, 50% or more. And then as we go out to the west, it's nothing crazy here in the west, just the usual suspect areas in the northern Rockies and on up in the Pacific Northwest. And one thing I did notice on the long range, Joe. This is enticing. Uh, uh, is it on your screen yet?
I'm waiting. Right now, I have a blank. What is that? The United? Oh, that's the winter weather outlook.
Well, this is
The winter
the long
WPC.
WPC's long range. So this is
Right.
this. I got the whole eastern United States in focus here. Here's Saturday. Here's Sunday. Here's Monday. Here's Tuesday. Nothing. Not a flake, not an ice pellet, nothing. And by the way, with all the snow the GFS is showing, and I'm going to just show you here, this is the regional view. I'm sorry, this is the local view of the southeast of Georgia, South Carolina, parts of southern Tennessee. So I'm going to put the cursor where I am, and that is the box is going to come up to show you that this is the 18Z GFS. Joe gave me 8 inches. All right, 8 inches. All right, and I'll switch over. I mean, this is just laughable. I'm going to switch over to the regional map so you can get an even better view of what this sick model is doing. And let the map load here. Roll it along. I mean, even tonight, it doesn't even give a tenth of an inch to Massachusetts. So, who knows how. Look at this. Look at this mess that it does. And the other thing is, here's an insult, all right, from what the GFS did in the late run. It gave, look at these amounts here that it gives in western North Carolina and southwestern Virginia and southern West Virginia. I mean, we're talking 20 inches, 15, 13, 15, Western North Carolina, a foot plus. And then I said 8 to me. It even gives, a few inches to the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, and 7 inches in Wilmington, Delaware. And then in a small portion, it gets into southern New Jersey. Then there's this big hole, and then suddenly it's got snow in eastern Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southeastern Massachusetts on the order of 4 to 7 inches. Just make this model stop. I mean, come on.
Yep.
You can see that no one believes it. No one believes it. I certainly don't.
Why would you?
Exactly. Why would you? So, let's do a little upper air, shall we?
Sure.
You're supposed to say surely.
Surely.
Yes.
It's 8:08, and we've managed actually to go this far in with so little to work with. So
yes, that's because that's because we're geniuses. You should have saved those speeding ticket stories for today.
Oh, I've got another story if you want.
All right. Well, let's wait. Hold it on. Hold on till we're done. So, again, progressive pattern. Everything moving from west to east. Not much of a connection from Canada as far as cold air is concerned. So this system moves out. You've got this upper low in northwest Texas Wednesday afternoon that shoots out to the northeast and on up toward the Great Lakes as another trough dives down into Texas. And then that trough swings eastward, goes. See, this is where the GFS differs from the other models because it drops this cutoff all the way down into southeast Georgia, and it's very vigorous. But meanwhile, you've got this sort of west to east, let's call it a ridgish flow, because there is just a bit of a ridge here across the Great Lakes and northeast. The upper low is underneath a cutoff low that drops down into Southern California. That upper low starts to lift up toward North Carolina, and you think, okay, well, that's nice. But there's nothing in the north to make it lift up the coast. So what does it do? It lifts up to North Carolina, and then it shoots out straight to the east. Because there's that deep troughing that drops down into the western part of the United States. There's another big trough that comes into the Pacific Northwest early next week. It dives down through the Rockies and then heads up toward the Great Lakes. We've got the beautiful southeast ridge east of the Bahamas that's just sitting there. This trough swings eastward. It lifts out. The ridge comes back. Another trough drops into the west. The ridge holds on. More troughing down in the west and more troughing down in the west. It is now February 23rd. Okay? So let's say this is all correct. let's just assume that this is all correct. All right. It would take you probably another 7 days or so for that pattern to change into something that would be even remotely favorable in the east. But just for argument's sake, let's say that it does that. That takes you to March 1st, March 2nd. All right. At best, that leaves you with 2.5. Let's say at best 3 weeks. Probably only 2 weeks, but at best 3. So there's if anything is going to happen, it would have to be in that time frame. And I'm going to tell you, looking at all of this and look at the upper air and look at some of the other models, some of the other models want to have this, more troughing a little bit more in the middle. I honestly, Joe, I don't think it makes it doesn't make any difference in my view.
I've seen more than a few people on the chat board bringing up the fact that people are upset that we're not seeing much snow this winter and blaming global warming. Let me tell all of you that global warming has actually been your best friend over the last 20 or 25 or 30 years. I say that because when Joe and I were growing up in the Bronx, and when we just started in getting into the weather business, we were seeing snowfall totals in New York, seasonal snowfalls of 20 to 25 inches for Central Park. Today, that has gone up considerably. Now we're talking closer to 30 or 32 inches annually. And you say, well, how is that possible? Why is that happening? Why is it snowing more now in recent years, in the last couple of decades, as opposed to back in the 60s and 70s and 80s? And the reason is global warming. And you shake your head like, what did he say? Global warming? Well, global warming, one of the keys to the theories of global warming is the fact that the atmosphere is warming up. And as it warms, the atmosphere thus has a greater capacity to hold moisture. So when we get those occasional shots of cold air, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is cold up over the polar regions. I mean, the global warming doesn't mean that we're losing all the cold air, that it's not cold anymore near the polar regions or northern Canada, or dare I say, in Siberia and China, which is having one of their coldest winters in recent memory. There's lots of cold air. But when the cold air interacts with all of that increased moisture, because of the warmth that we have built up over the last 20, 30, 40 years, that means, or that will translate into a greater amount of snow on those occasions when we do get set up for snow. And that's why in the last 20 or 30 years, we've seen the average snowfalls at Central Park go from like 20, 25 inches up to about 30 or 30 plus inches. And if you don't believe me, just go to the Upton, New York weather site, and you can see for yourself. I'm not lying. I'm not giving you a story here. The snowfall totals in the last 20 or 30 years have been humongous, have been tremendous. We've had years where we've had 20 plus inch snowfalls.
We've had more 20-inch snowfalls between 2000 and 2020 than we did from 1900 to 2000.
Right, exactly. And why is that happening? Because, again, probably increased moisture capacity of the atmosphere interacting with occasional shots of cold weather. So if you're upset and you're saying it's global warming, we're not seeing any snow, that's the reason why. No, it's not. It's just the opposite. It's probably because of the warming of the atmosphere and the increased capacity that the air now has for moisture that has helped to bolster the and it's so funny because the people who are naysayers and don't believe in climate change or global warming, they point to places like New York. Well, we've got so much snow over the last few. Look at all the snow that we've got and everything. That certainly means we're not warming.
Weather and climate are two different things.
Exactly.
What we're doing is totally different from climate.
Right.
That's different. We do the day to day, the week to week, the month to month. Okay. Climate does decade after decade, century after century, millennia after
And you see,
millennia.
Mark G has already got it all figured out.
Yes, of
Thank
course.
you, Mark G.
They always have it all figured
He
out.
said, well, with 3 years of snow drought in New York City, along with a return to El
It
Nino,
hasn't been
seasonal
three
average
years of snow drought. It hasn't. It just hasn't.
with a return to El Nino, seasonal average will drop over time. In other words, what Mark G is saying, Joe, is that in the over time, how much does over time translate to? 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years? We'll go back 20 years from now. We'll see maybe the snow average of Central Park will drop back to 25
No,
inches.
the long term, yeah, no, the long term snow average, and I did this, okay. If you go back to 1869 and you add it all up, it comes out to just under 30 inches. And that includes decades where the snows, and more than decades, sometimes 2 and 3 decades strung all together, where the snowfall was 10 inches below that, and then you had decades where it was 10 inches above it. And guess what? It always gravitates back to that number near 30. Okay, so to undo the last 20 years, you're gonna have to have at least 20 years of subpar winters in order to bring the average, even start to bring it down. So that's just nonsense. I can't. I have a real tough time with unequivocal statements. Okay, this sort of these absolute statements based on nothing, because that's what they are. And I'm sorry if you take that the wrong way. I find it annoying, actually. I find it quite annoying to have it said over and over and over again. It it kind of makes what we do pointless if you have it all figured out. Why don't we just shut the show down, right?
No, we can't do that. Let's not do that, Joe.
No, well, we're definitely not.
But
Um,
but the thing is that it reminds me of it's kind of like children at Christmas time
oh yeah,
where
because
they
they can get their Ziploc full of Skittles.
I mean, well, I wanted a bike or I wanted something and I didn't get it this year. And does that mean that you're not going to get it next year, the year after that? No, it's just like maybe this year's circumstances were beyond your parents or Santa Claus's control. Maybe there's a chance next year, but people just arbitrarily just, it's over, it's done. We're never going to see snow again. We're never going to have it. It's all over. Blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to see a single one of you. If we do get a major storm or even a minor storm, if we get like a storm that drops like 2 to 4, 3 to 5 inches before the end of the winter season and dashes the hopes of all of you who are saying, oh, this is going to be the worst winter. We're not going to get any snow. And it's going to be the all time's going to break 72, 73 record. So God help me, or God help you, if we get some kind of a significant snowfall that comes out of left field that gives us, enough so that I have to break the snowblower out of the garage, and you get the reporters at every single television station in New York standing in front of the giants, like at Omni True Value. Somebody will be standing out there in front of the giant mounds of salt. Well, we're waiting for that first snowflake to come down. I mean,
Mark Coletta. Mark Coletta says you're sounding like a Jet fan.
Did you see the cartoon I posted on Facebook a while back? I think this is after the Jets lost their fourth in a row. The guy is up. The guy is up in heaven, and he's standing in front of St. Peter, and St. Peter's got the big book out and saying, "Well, according to what I have here, you should be going to hell. But since you're a Jet fan, I'll take that into consideration as time served."
Yes.
What
All
the hell
right.
just
So
happened?
I don't know. Something happened. What happened?
I don't know. I banged on my table and something fell.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well, I've been running the European and the GFS in the background, just trying to gauge some clues. Don't have any. So Fred comes through tonight. You see rain that moves out of Texas and into Missouri. Some snow on the backside into Iowa and Wisconsin. We'll have a nice day tomorrow. It's one of these shameful years where it's actually warmer behind the cold front than it is ahead of it. That's what it's going to be tomorrow, because we'll be in the 50s. It probably wouldn't be a shocker to me, Joe, if we see some 60s on Thursday,
no, it wouldn't.
particularly in Central and South Jersey, with this low going as far west as it is, and a warm front coming up. Then that goes by, the front stalls out. You got rain along the southeast coast. That energy swings over, and again, with the GFS showing this really vigorous upper low, it develops a surface low in eastern North Carolina, brings it up to southern Delaware, and then off the. See, this is where it doesn't make sense to me. It takes the upper feature almost straight east, but for some reason it takes the surface low. How are you going to get the surface low off the New Jersey coast if the upper trough is going straight east from North Carolina out toward Bermuda? It doesn't match up. It makes no sense. So this is nonsense what it's doing. I'm not getting 8 inches here in North. I'm not. That's going away. We've got a low. Let's look out in the west. Something dropping down into Southern California and eventually makes another low in Texas early next week. Guess where that goes? That goes up into Great Lakes. Got another storm that forms in northern Texas with snows in Colorado. So that might be something for Denver. And that goes up to the Great Lakes with more rain in the east. Then that goes by. It gets a little colder behind it, but nothing to write home about. And then, of course, the high goes out back to the ridge off the east coast. Next low goes to the Great Lakes. And here we are at the 354 hour where we got another cool, chilly high building into the east and yet another low that comes out of the southwest. And where does that head, Joe? Toward the western Great Lakes. And on and on and on. Okay, if there was even a remote sign of hope, folks, I would tell you about it. It ain't there. It just is not there. And there you have it.
Maybe we'll have a rare tropical cyclone out near Japan that that suddenly develops and alters the jet stream in such a manner so that the whole configuration changes in March and April. Or what's going to happen, Joe. We'll have the perfect scenario set up for snowfall, and that'll come in late April or May when it's just a tad too warm anymore for any kind of snowfall. And we'll be sitting here on April 27th saying, why couldn't this happen in January or February? Why is this happening now? It's
yeah. Michael Zera, you're having buffering issues. It can't be me because I have a perfect signal going out here. So I don't see anybody else saying there's buffering going on. So that might be on your end. Oh, anyway, do you have Briller Jeopardy?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I guess I'll get it for everybody. The only fun that we could have tonight, courtesy of the chairman. And let's see. Here we go. This is the last Briller Jeopardy. It's like, you remember on Karnak when Ed McMahon would take I have in my hand the last envelope, and the whole audience would go into a standing ovation. I have in my hand, or I have on my screen, Joe, the last Briller Jeopardy on February snow in the following cities. And the chairman also says, I promise, this is the last one. So here we go. For February, the average snowfall in the month of February for the mile-high city of Denver.
Denver, guys, I have just put it up on the chat board. So let's throw your numbers around. I'm going to say 15. And
Packy
South
says 20. Keith James has 9. The second has 9.
Ellen Bertona 11.5. Christopher Alley
Leon has
12.
10. Yeah.
Jacqueline Baxter says 27. Mark DeCaris is 16. Maggie P says it is 7.7.
And how is she so confident about that?
I don't know.
Unless she looked it up somewhere.
Right. Zim says 11.5. Tyler Fenga says 11.5. Hassan Storm 15.
Hassan Chop. You have to be a
Bugs Bunny fan to understand
and to know what that is.
Chris O'Shaughnessy 6.8. Rich Rothmansky 19. And Maggie P is in the Denver area, she says. That's why she knows. So what is the
Oh,
answer, Joe?
7.5, Maggie. You were off by two. If this were Price is Right rules, you would have lost because you went over by 0.2 of an inch. But this is not Price is Right rules, so we give it to you. 7.5 for Denver.
Next.
All right, Mr. Bennett, Rochester.
Next.
Rochester.
Oh, Rochester.
Rochester, New York. What did you?
I was like, Rochester, New York.
Why would I try to do my Rochester imitation
if I Rochester, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Rochester, New York. I'm gonna say 20.
All right. Keith James II says 24, and he said it again. We saw it the first time, Keith. 24.
Helen Bertona, 27.6. Mark DeCara, 10.3. Patrick Darcy, 23. Sal Patchy, 23. Adam Lowe, 22. Zim says 12.6. Mark G, 28. Anybody on the nose here?
No. Some are close.
Weather Nerd says 8.
The closest one.
18.
The closest one so far is Sal. If that'll give you a clue.
And what did Sal say?
23.
23. So, Keith James says 24.
Well, then we should have a hybrid between Sal and Keith, and then we'd have the correct answer.
So was it? Michael McGuire says 24.5. So I'll say 23.5.
And that is the correct answer. 23.5. And I want to tell you all that when I first got started in weather and started doing broadcasting on a number of radio stations, one of them was WROC in Rochester, New York. And I'm happy to tell, not happy, but I will tell you that we lost that contract within 6 months because when you come from the Bronx and you're trying for the first time in your life to forecast accurately lake effect snows, which we did horribly. And
I would imagine.
Interestingly, 5 years later, we picked up another radio station in Rochester, WHAM, which you can hear in the New York area. It's 1180 on the dial, and we did so much better because after 5 years, you learn about a number of things and about lake effect or whatever. But anyway, and we learned about Rochester and Sodus Bay and all the places in and around that get hit. Anyway, 23.5 inches not annual, but February snowfall on average in Rochester. Now we move to where everybody is going to be focusing their attention on in 33 minutes, Washington, D.C. What is Washington, D.C.'s February snowfall?
I'm going to say 4.7.
4.7. Okay. And what else do other people say? Johnny Quest, 5.7. Craig Carlberg, 6.5. Helen Bertona, 2.7. Jacqueline Baxter, 7. Weather Nerd, 6.5. Frank Riccio, you win the $100. Just take it out of my pocket. You win. You've got it right on the schnozola with 5. 5 inches.
And the last one is?
And they haven't had a single flake yet in Washington this year, have they?
I don't know.
And Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I mean, you know what? I don't know.
All right. This is number 4, actually, out of 5. Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. I'm going to say, for February, I'm going to say 2.9.
Not bad.
2.9.
2.5, though. Christopher Alley did a little bit better than you, Joe.
And Frank Riccio, 2.5. Latex Dreams / Tim, 2.5. So we know that it's in that range. So everybody's got Patrick Darcy, 2.4. Adam Lowe, 2.2. Are we getting closer?
Well, if we had an average between what Patrick and Adam said, we'd have it right on the nose.
2.3.
Actually, no. Pardon me. Who said 2.2? Adam? Adam Lowe?
Yes.
He gets the $100. 2.2. Yes.
All right.
And last but certainly not least, in our hearts and minds, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Where for many years I was on WFIL when it
I
was a
will
rock station.
say
Philly 56.
7.1.
Okay.
Probably too high. Frank
Weather
Riccio
Nerd
6.
Weather Nerds 9.0. I'm looking to see if anybody got it on the nose. Not yet. Tyler Fenga came very close, though.
At 8.7.
Yes.
So I'll say
Patrick Darcy came even closer.
At 8.3. So what is it? 8.4.
And Luis Orizio gets it with 8.4. There you go.
And there you have it.
When I was doing Philadelphia radio, WFIL in Philadelphia, Philly 56, I got into trouble on the very first day. Thought I'd be smart and sound like I came from Philadelphia. And I said, and there's a chance for some snow. So if I were you, I'd stay off the Skykill Expressway. Immediately, Jack Hyland, the news director at WFIL, called and said, next time you try that, it's Schuylkill, not Skykill.
Oh, God. Well, except for Denver, I think every station that we mentioned this tonight is in a snow drought.
Yes.
So it is. I hate that cliche.
It is what it is. I worked with a guy at News 12, Bryson Van Eck.
Yes.
Nice guy. But every time I'd pose a question or a problem to him, he'd always come up with the same response. Well, it is what it is.
Oh. I just realized I'm not in focus for some reason. I think I ought to.
I wasn't. I'm not in focus either.
Yeah, I got to clean the camera lens.
Well, you're sharp on my thing. I'm not in focus.
Oh, then you got to clean your camera lens.
Oh.
And on that note, I think we can call an end to this show tonight. And if you missed it and you started late, well, fear not. You can do this tomorrow night. Let me just thank again the chairman, Scott Briller, Sal Patchy, Frank Scalera, Eric DJs, and Robert Russo, all hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you so much. And yes, Eric, that is your first first Super Chat hit. Thank you. Thank you all. Very much appreciated.
We're 17 away from 100 likes, though, Joe.
Oh, Joe, I don't. Oh, you had a story.
I got my electric bill today.
Okay.
Or yesterday. I got my electric bill. Now, my electricity supply charge was 0.08395 kilowatt hours. And it was an enormous amount of money that they were asking on this. And very quietly, I'm not exactly sure when they did this, but they changed it from 0.083 to 0.21. They increased the electricity supply charge by a factor of 3 almost. Oh. And that's why I have such a tremendous electricity bill. And I asked Renata, I said, so now what are we going to do?
I mean, well, what was your electric bill?
Oh, you don't want to even know.
Oh, I know. I do want to know because then I can get to rub it in and tell you what mine is.
Let's say it was we're going to have to pay 4 Ben Franklins this month.
So it was a 1-month bill for over $400?
Correct.
Wow. But again, you have oil heat too, right?
Correct.
See, I have a dual system. So when the temperature is above 40 outside, the electric takes my heat. When it goes below 40, the propane takes it. But my electric bill lasts for the month of December. I haven't gotten the January bill yet. So for the month of December, which by the way includes those bitter cold days, was $74.
Okay, so now are you happy? You made me feel.
Oh no! Listen, I feel terrible that you paid a $400 bill, but
well, yeah, but
I'm happy because you know, we have hydroelectric power here, so uh, there's plenty of water. There's, they make plenty of electricity out of it. Whereas where you are, it's natural gas, I think, that they use to make electricity.
But I mean, like without even sending like a notice out saying we are increasing the electricity supply, they just very quietly. I said, "What the hell's going on here?" And that obviously is the reason. Went from electricity supply charge went from 0.0839 to 0.21 something or whatever. So it almost tripled in just the last few months. Crazy.
Well, everybody's getting in the Northeast is getting hit with really, hard electric bills this
Now,
winter.
ladies and gentlemen, after telling my electricity story, you would think that would be worth at least 7 more likes.
Oh, you're begging for it, aren't you?
Hit that button and get us to 100, or else I'm going to start a GoFundMe page on
Yeah, come on, give
Facebook.
Joe his likes because
Give me my likes already.
JJ is already in bed. He's waiting for me to get in bed so he can go to sleep. So let's try and get to 100 likes. Or is everybody?
Joe, it's stuck at 93.
92. Okay. Well, you know what, Joe? It is what it is. Okay.
All right.
David Carter says Eversource in Connecticut just raised their rates big time. Fortunately, I have solar, so it doesn't affect me directly. All right, so in all truthfulness, we're at 98 likes. We should get there. Yeah. But in all truthfulness, the big upside for this kind of winter is the fact that considering everything else that's going on, you think your electric bills are high now. Can you imagine if we had a below normal temperature winter through all of this? Heating oil would have been double what price wise than what it is, than what it was for this winter. So there are upsides to all of this. So
yes. And Matt Finley says, and we'll finish off on this note, Rayo seems to have seems to have things happen around him, from the speeding tickets last night to an increased electric bill tonight, just an innocent working his way through life. Yes, exactly. If I'm not here tomorrow night, you can figure this out. If Renata's doing this in my place tomorrow night, you could only imagine what happened to me.
And on that note, let us.
Thelma.
Yes. On that note, let us now say good night, and we will see you tomorrow. Sal, go back to the last 15 minutes of last night's show, if you missed it. Joe talks all about the speeding tickets he got. So anyway, we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. I don't know that we'll have much more to talk about, but we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35
We'll figure out something
p.m.
to rant about tomorrow night.
All right. Everybody, have a great evening. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
All right. Good night.